You know, one thing you never told me is about, I know you were raised in this area of Maine, isn't that right?
That's correct, yeah.
And tell me a little bit about mom and dad. What did they do, brothers and sisters?
My father married twice. So the first wife died in childbirth with the third child. And for 6 years, my father was a widower. And then later on, he went to Canada and met someone that he fell in love with. And they were married and lived 63 years together. So the first wife had 3 children, and the second wife had 4. So we were 7 children in the family. Now the family was so well blended that I was probably, I would say maybe 6, maybe 7 years old before I even knew we were stepbrothers and stepsisters, because it was, my mother had excellent psychology, so we got along well. She knew how to deal with both of us, and then we both sides of the family, and then we really never had any serious problems, and so they were good Christians.
Your mom was your dad's first spouse?
Second. My dad lost his first wife in childbirth.
And so you were born with his second?
I was born with the second.
And 7 children altogether?
7 in all, yeah. 3 in the first wedding, and then we were 4 in the second wedding.
So you were raised in a rural area during tough economic times?
It was a paper milling center. Rumford had at that time about 9,000 or 10,000 people. So, but it was rather, it had one industry. It was a paper milling town, and if the paper mill had closed, the town would have collapsed actually. So it was a small town. My father was in a paper mill all his life, about 43, 44 years, and. He had come from Canada along with my mother. Both his first wife and his second wife came from Canada. So my father and mother were Canadians, and they lived in the United States most of their lives. So my father
French Canadians?
No, they were Franco-American. They were from the province of Quebec.
But was French your primary language?
Well, French was my primary language until about the age of about 7 or 8. And then I always knew some French, and I speak French also right now. But most of my education was in English. So because of the education, English is my primary language.
One of the great things about your family is the length of life. You've been very blessed.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the age of your family.
Well, my mother died at 98, and she was I think a couple months from 99, and my father died at 96. So I had determined that I probably would survive until about 97.